So good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. I'm Jennifer Acey. I'm the mayor of Bernards Township, and I am very excited to invite you to our Fabric of Bernards event. This is specifically supporting women, and it's awesome to see some male supporters. So thank you for being here. This event is also going to be recorded, so if those couldn't make it, no worries. They can watch it on playback. I just wanted to share that we are very excited to have not only myself, I'm excited to be here, but also we have some other Township Committee women that are here helping. So if I may, Committee Woman Ana Duarte McCarthy has been handing out note cards, and Janice Fields, our Deputy Mayor, is also here. She will also be handing out cards. She's doing double duty. She's also doing library board, so she's going to duck out and come back, and she'll be back with us and help send out cards. And then I also wanted to give the floor to our Assemblywoman, Michelle Matsakudis. So I'd like to have her come up and make some comments. So thank you for coming, and please.
You know, when I heard this was a women's history panel tonight, I had to just, I'm not able to stay, unfortunately, but I did want to just stop by and lend my support. Although with this crowd behind me, I don't think you need it. This is an amazing group of women. What strikes me is they're all age ranges, which really is, just makes it an even more empowering group, right? So you have wisdom from all different levels. Recently, I think it's Julia Louis-Dreyfus has a podcast out now called Wiser Than Me, and I loved it. I've listened to a couple of them, and it's all about, I'll say, younger women and older women having conversations about things that they've learned. And I find that, again, very empowering because we can all learn something from each other. And it's unfathomable to me, I'm just going to kind of digress here for a minute, that women only have had the right to vote for a little over 100 years. So when I think about, I'll say, how far that we've come, and I look at a panel like this of very strong, talented, powerful women, it makes me happy. And it makes me know that we are headed in the right direction. And I want to thank Jen for inviting me here. And I want to wish you all a very good night. So thank you very much.
We're very lucky to have Assemblywoman Matsakudis. She provides us so much support. I mentioned at Township Committee last night that on May the 10th, for instance, thanks to her and her office, we're going to have a mobile MVC unit. So if you need a real ID, driver's license, she arranged for us to get access to a mobile unit that'll be here at Town Hall from 10 to 2. So that is something that the state designates in terms of availability. So as soon as we know when it's available on their website, we'll share that. I expect that the spots will go pretty quick. So if your driver's license is coming up for renewal and you need that real ID, look for maybe, they say about a month out. So, but that's all thanks to Assemblywoman Matsakudis' offices. So thank you for your support. So what I want to do is, you're not going to be hearing much from me. So we have amassed this amazing panel. And if I can just share, tonight is about fulfillment. And I shared with our panelists that when I got on Township Committee, I wanted to do a women's program. So I think all of the Fabric of Bernards programs are wonderful. This one is particularly important because I tried for over 2 years to think, how can I create a program that strings all different types of women together in a meaningful way that hopefully our audience will find connections to? And so it hit me in the shower. All great ideas happen in the shower. And it was the topic of fulfillment. So, you know, in my corporate life, I led the Women's ERG, or Employee Resource Group. So empowering and supporting women to be all they can be has been a passion of mine. Now, it's not just about women. The topics that we would do was also related to men as well, and we invited them. But I really wanted to make sure that we created a platform that women had that opportunity. So thank you to each and every one of you for coming tonight, showing support to our women. And I hope that you find a connection to something that one of the women say as we go through this type of information. Now, these women represent, as the Assemblywoman mentioned, they represent different stages of life, different stages of motherhood. They're all mothers. They also represent different employment statuses. Some stay-at-home moms, some work full-time, some virtual, in-person, large corporations, self-employed, the gamut. So again, tried to be very inclusive around that. But the one thing that they all have in common, so the one thing that everyone, and that's why they're on this panel, is they contribute to Bernards Township in some way. So they either hold a leadership position, an officially elected position, or an informal position, one in which they created a group and they work with that group to contribute to our community in some way. So I am so excited to have them begin to share their information. Let me just give you just a quick run of show. So what is going to happen is I'm going to ask the questions. I'm going to get out of the way so they don't see the back of my head. I'm going to sit down here, and I'm going to ask questions, and they're going to answer. As we go through, if you have questions that come to mind, our committee women have note cards. I think they might have handed them out. If you have a particular question, we want to invite you to do that. We'll have Q&A at the end. And just put down the person that you, in particular, you'd like to answer that. And so our committee women will, again, they'll collect these questions as they go. So when we get to the Q&A section, I will ask them of the women. That way I can, if there's like similar questions, I'll group them together. The other thing is that I warned the women that they need to make sure that they're speaking into the microphone because this is being recorded. And so that's where I will read the question for the folks, and I will share that with them. So with that, I don't think there's anything else to do but to debut our amazing panel. So with that, I would like to begin and ask our amazing women that will help us to give us insights into how they find fulfillment. I will ask them to give their brief introductions about themselves. So I'd like to ask Dr. Schulpeklat to start.
Thank you, Mayor. A little bit about myself, as was just mentioned, I am a physician. I'm an OBGYN, and I've been in solo practice for the past 12 years. But I've been an OBGYN now for 27 years. So prior to that, I had other positions, more part-time, for my career. Why? Because of the 3 children, as all mothers know, where we have to sort of devote different times. My 3 kids at this point are 16, 19, and 23. As they've grown and become more adults, my practice has been growing and growing, and I've found more time in the last few years to step into the volunteer world, which I was not able to do so easily when they were younger. So in the last few years, ever since COVID started volunteering with the vaccines, and then from there, the town. And I've recently, in the last couple of years, joined the Board of Health in town, and loving every moment of it.
Okay, that's good. Well, sure. I have a little bit longer because after going through all of the questions, I'm thinking I really want you to know the journey that I've taken, and it might affect some other people along the way. So here I go. My name is Rose Salaki, and thank you first, Mayor, for inviting me on this panel. This is my first panel discussion, so I appreciate it. I was born in Washington, D.C. My father was an electrician's mate in the Navy, and my mother was a nurse. I grew up in Rockaway, New Jersey, with 2 sisters and a brother. I played field hockey and basketball in high school and was on the yearbook committee. I did a lot of babysitting as well. I started out as a nurse's aide and became a licensed practical nurse. Then I went on to nursing school and became an RN. And that is where I met my husband in New York City. My husband, Jack, who was a medical student. After our marriage, I worked as a nurse for 3 years before leaving to raise our children one daughter and 4 sons, who are now grown. We have lived in Basking Ridge for 46 years. Being a stay-at-home mom has been a joy, watching our children grow and getting to know our neighbors. Also, both of our parents and relatives were near, so I could help take care of them when they needed us or me. When our youngest son was in high school, a friend asked if I would like to take a refresher course in nursing. Now, mind you, this is quite like 20 years or something. So I said yes. So the two of us went down to Princeton, to the New Jersey Hospital Association, and we took a 3-month course, and we both passed our exam. So I was back into nursing. And I was fortunate enough to work at the hospital, Marshtown, for a while. And then I went out, did part-time jobs, home care and things like that. And, but it was wonderful to get back into nursing, something that I really loved and wanted to do. It became necessary for me to leave my last position, my part-time position, when the COVID came through. But then I was able to volunteer just 2 days for the COVID vaccines because I still have my license. My volunteer work started at the town library. I became a reader for the preschoolers once a week, and that was a joy. When the children were in school, both my husband and I were active in St. James PTO. I was very active in something called Bethel Ridge in town, a home for developmentally disabled young adults, where I helped out with many of the fundraisers and activities there. I also belonged to St. James Rosary Altar Society, where I was past president, etc. And Jennifer knows me just because I am the co-chair of the Basking Ridge Garden Club here in town. And I love it. I've been there for 12 years. We have wonderful girls there, and I'm going to give you a pitch. If anybody would love to be out in the sun and the garden and the fresh air, please, we're on Instagram and Google and all that stuff, so look us up. So that's my introduction, and then I have other questions I'll answer later on.
Thank you. I did give them permission to plug, so they're welcome to plug the organizations they're involved with.
Hi, my name is Jane Zhang. Thank you to Mayor AC for this wonderful opportunity to know all these wonderful women in town and all the people attending today's event. I was born and grew up in China, moved around a few places in Beijing, Shanghai, and some smaller town. I came to U.S. when I was 27, 35 years ago, so you can do the math, how old I am. So I went to Rutgers for my PhD in chemistry. So I received my degree, PhD in 1994. I started work for Warner Lambert, Pfizer, J&J for about 23 years. And then right before, I didn't know the COVID was coming, but I was laid off from J&J 2017 and picked up a teaching position at Raritan Valley Community College to teach chemistry through the COVID, teaching chemistry lab in using Zoom, which is kind of a challenging, interesting experience. Then 3 years later, college has a reduced enrollment, so I kind of left the college again, retired this kind of second time. Since then, I have more time on my hand, so I started volunteer. Started as a homeowner association, library, board trustee, and 3 years ago, we formed Bernard's Chinese American Association. Since then, we have organized quite a few holiday celebrations, such as the Lunar New Year celebration, Moon Festival celebration, and other events. I have, my husband and I lived in town for 26 years. We have two grown-up children. Children, they currently live nearby. So we have no plan to leave lovely Burnett Township at this time. That's it.
Hi, everyone. I'm Christina Winterfelt. Thank you, Mayor Acey, for having me. My story is pretty straightforward. I grew up in Wisconsin as an only child with a single dad. And so it was just he and I for a very long time, which I think teaches you a lot of responsibility very early, because all of those, as we're talking about gender today, women's roles fell to me as a kid. And I think it actually was a really big blessing, because it taught me how to figure some stuff out and make things happen. And it was great. So I grew up there. I went to the University of Wisconsin-Madison. I have a degree in risk management and insurance and in HR and management. I had the opportunity to start my career in Chicago for a Fortune 500 brokerage firm, insurance brokerage firm. I've worked there for 22 years this June in a variety of different roles. So I started my career in doing offshore risk management programs. I had the opportunity to go back to Wisconsin, where I'm from, and lead a P&L there, and then eventually my job moved me to New Jersey for another bigger branch opportunity here. I met and married my college sweetheart, so literally the guy that lived across the hall from me at college. I tease, he's from up north in Wisconsin, and I tease that I locked him up before he knew what else was out there, right? So I've been with the same guy since I was 17 years old, the same company for 22 years, so there's a bit of serial monogamy in me. When I like people and things, I hold on to them very, very tightly. Let's see, so I have 3 kids. I have a daughter, Alex, who's 12, a son, Will, who's 8, and a little girl, Gigi, who's 6. I have loved being part of this town. I feel like I hit the literal jackpot. We did not know what we were getting into when we moved to the East Coast and knew nothing about it. And I really couldn't be happier. I don't know that there's a much better place to live than in the town that we're in. And I found that, kind of hitting my stride after being in the new role and moving your family with no other family across the country to try to figure out how to do all of that on your own, that I had a little bit of time to give back in other ways. And so had the opportunity to lead my oldest daughter's Girl Scout troop. And that, believe it or not, has led me to really get to know our community through their eyes, right? So as they're learning to explore how they can be part of this, and I'm supporting them, I'm learning so much and meeting so many people too. And it's just really been a joy. So I'm excited to spend some time with you guys this evening, and humbled that people came and really thrilled to just get to meet all the women here today. So that's me.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming. My name is Dolores Sierra, and I'd like to begin by thanking Mayor Jennifer Acey for inviting me to be a part of this Fabric of Burnett's event and for this shout out. I am honored to be sitting here as we celebrate Women's History Month, and in case you can't tell, she talks for a living. I don't, so I'm looking at my notes, and I'm
great.
I am grateful to Mayor Acey, and I am also grateful, she stepped out, Deputy Mayor Janice Fields, for recognizing our efforts and our time. And I will say to both of you what I often say to others: I am glad to help. Whenever I reach out to Mayor Acey or Mayor Fields with a question or a concern, I always receive an immediate response. I appreciate how approachable they are, and I love their no-nonsense approach. When my husband James and I first set foot in Basking Ridge late in the year 2000, we just instantly knew this was the place. We took stock that it checked off all the boxes we were searching for: safe neighborhood, good schools, proximity to New York City, an excellent library, great parks, just to name a few. We made an offer on our home very quickly and moved our young family here that fall, and we are coming up on our 24th year. Prior to moving to Basking Ridge, I worked for the law firm Milbank Tweed, Hadley & McCloy. With our young daughters now in elementary school, I took every opportunity I could to volunteer at Liberty Corner School with numerous other school activities. I wanted to be as helpful as I could in helping our daughters reach their full potential. In October 2017, I was asked to be admin of Basking Ridge Moms. Knowing full well what that meant, I decided to say yes anyway. It has led me to meet many wonderful women in the community, and I enjoy the opportunity it gives me to help. I surmised that I would probably be critiqued for taking it too seriously or not seriously enough. Two choices. Easy. I decided to go all in and give it 100%. Today, the group is constructive and beneficial in many different ways, and together we make it what it is, a forum where women can ask for help or advice at any time. You will always find a friendly ear. A few years ago, 2 Basking Ridge residents named James Fody and Steve Cohen asked if I could share and spread the word about the Basking Ridge Business Alliance, commonly known as the BRBA. The Toy Tamer, she's a member, Evelyn. Thank you for showing up here, Evelyn. I really appreciate that. In September of 2022, James Fody was asked to chair the First Responders Appreciation Dinner by Janice Fields. Again, I'm mentioning her, and she's missing out on
At the
this.
library board.
Somebody tell her. And he asked if I would like to help, and I jumped at the chance. Like Mayor Asay, I have 2 members of my family who were members of the police force, so that was an excellent opportunity for me to give back. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you to the mayor for organizing this and for this opportunity, and thank you for coming. My name is Emily Sorokin, and I actually spent my entire childhood in Basking Ridge, so I was very blessed to have been raised here. Then I spent 13 years in the city, and I came back recently in late 2022 to raise my children here. I have a 5-year-old son and an almost 2-year-old son. What I do for a living, so I have spent over 9 years in healthcare consulting, so I consult for employers across size and industry on health and well-being strategies, and I actually specialize in family life solutions and women's health. So I actually came from a meeting today talking about how we support women in the workplace. So very relevant day on supporting women. Outside of work, when I came here in late 2022, I also helped lead and start the Bernard's Women's Run Club. And it's a local women's running community. We meet weekly, and we run in different locations around town. You know, there's walkers as well. You don't have to be a runner, and it's been a really fulfilling way to give back to the community and just bring people together. I also have served as a board member since 2017 on the Ridge Alumni Memorial Scholarship Fund, and it basically awards scholarship to a deserving Ridge High School senior annually. And it was actually started by the Ridge High School class of 1967, and in honor of a classmate that they had lost in the Vietnam War, and they have kept it going ever since, and it's been another really rewarding way to give back to the community. So I feel really blessed that I have come full circle, and I can now share a lot of the experiences I had with my own children and give back to the community that gave me so much growing up.
Hi, I just want to thank the mayor for having me. I feel honored to be on the committee. My name is Shannon Novinsky. I've been living in Basking Ridge for 5.5 years now, but I've been in the area for over 10. We love it here. We have no plans to leave. I graduated from UConn, go Huskies, and I spent my professional career thus far. I was in marketing, advertising, mainly in the pharmaceutical industry for almost a decade. And then come to the birth of my first child, I decided to stay at home and raise her. She is now 5, and I also have a 2.5-year-old son. And, you know, leaving the professional world and being a stay-at-home mom, it was kind of like a shock. And then we had COVID, and there was just a lot going on. It was a big change for everybody. It was a big change in my life to, be out of the working world, be at home during the pandemic. But I found a local moms group, Summerside Hills Moms, and I quickly joined their leadership team, which I've been on for the past 3-4 years. And it's really brought me close to the community. I've been able to meet a ton of people, networking with local businesses. I've met so many families. It's a mom's group, but you meet the dads, you meet the kids, you meet the grandparents. We've been trying to do more and more with local businesses. And, I've made so many wonderful friendships through it. And yeah, thank you.
So see how exciting it was. I was like, I feel very grateful that each of you took a chance to share your personal stories with us. So thank you. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to pivot into some of the questions that we have prepared. And if any of these perk any ideas or questions that you may have, again, please use the cards and we will do those towards the end. So we're going to start with understanding fulfillment. So Shannon, I'm going to ask you first. How do you personally define fulfillment? And has that definition evolved over time?
Personally, to me, fulfillment means like what fills my cup, like what brings me joy, what recharges me, what re-energizes me. And I know, like growing up, I always thought of fulfillment as success, as reaching my goals, reaching my professional, my personal achievement. And while this still is true and can be true, I find that the way that I viewed fulfillment in my life and success is really like where I am in my life, at the stage I am. You know, I said before, I'm a mom, I'm a stay-at-home mom, I have young kids, and I'm really been navigating the past few years to find like what brings me satisfaction. With the, like I, reference to the pandemic, the world has changed in a lot of ways, and so it's been navigating, community, school, young kids, meeting moms, families, and just trying to find where I fit in, where my kids fit in, what we can do as a community, what we can do with my friends, and really just finding what brings me the most satisfaction, and what, at the end of the day, like what I look forward to, what makes me happy. And yeah, that's how I define fulfillment right now. And I'm sure it'll change as I get older, but I think ultimately, at the core of it, it's like what makes us who we are.
Anyone else have anything they'd like to add? If not, we'll go on to the next. Jane, what are the key elements or factors that contribute to your sense of fulfillment in life?
So the key elements that contribute to my fulfillment are first to set a goal in my life early on and work really, really hard towards it. So before I left China, I know I want to get a more advanced education, getting PhD in chemistry. My major was chemistry back in China before I came here, and became a scientist to work benefited to the general population. So when I was a graduate student, first came here, I didn't have my driver license, never sit in the driver's side of any car back when I came here from China 35 years ago. Back then, there was no private car, maybe some corporate car, but no private citizen can own a car. And no driver license, not speaking much English, and not really know the culture and the school, how the relationship between the student to the teacher may be different from one in China. So the only thing I can do is to work hard. So I work 12 plus hours every day to read and write read literature. Since English is not my native language, I read slower, just had to spend more time to read. And then eventually to write my own paper, complete all the experiments in the lab, spending more time. So the effort counts. Anything that you spend in there, it will pay back. So after graduation, I started to work for a pharmaceutical company and started to understand the corporate cultures, and then move up in the career ladders. Then I have started to have family with 2 young children, and that's more challenging. I try to simplify the routines, so without too much shopping, or to reduce the unnecessary need for my life. So, and also plan ahead, and for summer camp, I start to plan early. This way, we can carpool with other parents, so to manage the career and the family simultaneously. So basically, the factors for my fulfillment, one is that having a goal, set a goal early on, and work hard towards it.
Thank you. Anyone else that'd like to add anything?
Jean, I just think that makes a lot of sense when you work really hard for something, right? You can have a lot of honor and fulfillment in knowing that you put in the time and effort. That makes a lot of sense.
Thank you. So we're going to talk about challenges and successes. We've all had them, right? So I'm going to start with Shilpa. I'm going to ask you this question. Can you share a specific moment or experience where you felt particularly fulfilled or satisfied in your personal or professional life?
Yes, so, you know what, I go back and, as a physician, there's been a lot of challenges, right? Step after step, and your training doesn't really finish until you're at least 30 years old, minimum. And most women around you are already starting to, well, back in our day, right? Not the current generation is a little different. But, women around you are starting to have children, and now I'm starting to juggle starting a family. And not having I'm balancing between keeping a career, which once I had 3 younger kids was more part-time. I took a position for the hospital for 5 years, which I kept my career going, but wasn't personally satisfying because they were not my private patients. I was taking care of a group of women and patients, which was wonderful, but it was shift work, so I left and I got home. But my children, in the meantime, what I noticed over the years, in the part that I feel very satisfied in my life, in that juggle that everybody, especially the parents, question, how are you going to do all that? You're never going to be able to fulfill your role as a mother and a wife and, what was traditionally always expected, right? So the parts that made me see through my last 20 plus years that I made the right choice and felt the most fulfilled is when my children responded to what I did. And I have 2 particular moments that I quite remember quite distinctly. There was once I was about to take my older son to some event or something, I can't remember, and he was younger. And I got a call from my colleague at the hospital for having a ruptured ectopic that she had to rush to the emergency room on a patient with, and she needed me to come in to assist her on the case. And I had to drop everything because there was a woman's life at stake. And my son just looked at me and said, "Mom, that's okay. You have someone's life to save. That's more important." And it just made me think on my way in that he actually understands that where my priority was. And the second example that sticks to me so distinctly is after COVID and after what everyone went through, when our hospital started up the vaccine program and needed volunteers to give out vaccines, I remember during Christmas break, I had signed up for 2 shifts because we had some lighter times and everyone was home. So I went and volunteered, and I came home and I went into my daughter's room and just said, Mom gave out however many number of vaccines it was that day. And it was really the start of COVID vaccines just being introduced. And she looked me straight in the eye and said, "Mom, it was your day off. You've been working through all of COVID, you and Dad, and you just went out and gave vaccine to how many people?" She said, "A lot of my friends' moms are stressed and don't know how to cope and try to figure out how they can get away this week to a spa or the beach. And you were out there doing this or setting up a blood bank to get blood donations." She said, "You know what, Mom? I'm really proud of you." And that to me just stuck. And when I went into my room, my husband said, "You know what? You must have given however many vaccines, but you just made an impression on your child. So all the challenges that you faced, how you were going to juggle it all, your kids saw what you do." And he said, "And you really probably placed the biggest impression to them by doing what you do in the world." And I think that's what came back to me and said, wow, you know what? You can do it all. You just have to set a good example to the kids.
Thank you.
Am I the only one that's teary?
Anyone else have anything to add?
We should all give a round of applause to healthcare providers through the COVID. This is the hardest part for them. And they have family. We all worry. We try to stay out of the way. We try to hide ourselves at home as much, but they are the one in the front line to protect us.
Agreed.
So let's go to another question around challenges and successes. So Jane, I'm going to put you on the hot seat. What are some of the biggest challenges you faced in finding fulfillment, particularly as a woman?
Well, as a first-generation immigrant and a woman, there's a lot of challenges, such as the language barrier, such as the cultural differences. Started to drive for the first time ever at the age of around 30, which I never been a good driver. To this day, I try to avoid driving as much as I can. It's just challenging. Some people enjoy the driving so much. Even it's a very small part of it, but if driving become a challenge, it is a hurdle for me. But through the last 25-ish years in the company, I did have some very memorable moments, making me feel happy and fulfilled, such as, and whenever we have a new product launch, we're so proud of, we provide the consumer more options, more choice to protect their health, to improve their oral health particularly. And then some paper being published, scientific research paper being published, a patent being filed. Those things are the moment. I did share that with my children. I'm sure their boys are not as vocal as Dr. Klaus's daughter, showing the appreciation. They just look at me, okay, well, you did it. I didn't say much, but I hope that they feel proud of. I'm sure they are. And they both become, in the science, their career path. I think there must be a lot of influence between from my husband and I, what we did in the past 30 years to their life, to improve people's life in the healthcare, in the pharmaceutical companies, to bring more options to people. So those are some of the moments that I remember in my career. And then in the last 3 things, 2019 to 2022, when I was teaching at Raritan Valley Community College, there are a lot of moments when the students said, aha, I understood it, and now it's like the moment that you feel like, great, that's very satisfactory.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, let's go to another fun topic, balancing priorities. So, Christina, how do you balance your various roles and responsibilities while striving for fulfillment?
Very carefully, no. So I think there's something someone said to me, you know, people always give you advice, right? And sometimes you want that advice and sometimes you don't. But I remember talking to someone about balance, and at the time that topic for me was, like Shilpa mentioned, work and children, right? And we're using a lot of examples that today because I think that's our experience. But the reality is that balance can come in an aging parent, a sick spouse, a family member, a child, school, an illness you deal with yourself. Like that balance comes in coaching and so many things that we put into our lives. So it's not just about just about family and work. But the person started to say to me, like, they gave me some advice, and they said, work-life balance is a fallacy. And I tend to be a pretty positive person, so I was like, oh, here we go again, right? Like, we're gonna hear this negative viewpoint, and I, like you said, you can do it all, right? So like, that's what I wanna hear, right? So I was listening to this person, I was feeling like, okay, I'm gonna have to endure this negative comment. And what they said next really surprised me. They said, balance isn't about trying to do all the things that are important to you in a day, in a week, or in a month. And if you try to put everything that's important and be the best mom, wife, worker, daughter, all those things in short periods of time, you'll never succeed. And again, I'm still like, scrunched up brow for me. And they said, you really have to think about balance in seasons, right? Seasons of life. So you may have a season of caring for a family. You may have a season of work. You may have a season of self-care, right? And if you really think about making sure that in those seasons you're giving the right priority there, and that the seasons themselves over your lifetime balance, I think it just gives you a lot of grace to give yourself, to say it's okay to not be perfect on all the things we feel like we need to do at the same time. So I try to think about that a lot. Like, what am I in a season of? And how, and how can I balance that out so that, and so the question you asked was about fulfillment. And so for me, fulfillment is more about giving myself permission not to feel upset about what I haven't done and feel good about what I am able to contribute. So.
Christina, I think that's very well worded, because I look back now, and when we look as women as to what, of everything to do, it's about, as you said, seasons. I look at it as different stages of our lives, and how dedicating certain parts of your lives throughout time, and not on one day or 1 week, to spread it out.
It's been helpful for me, so I hope it works for someone else.
Rose, do you have anything that you can add?
I put down here when I saw, how do you balance your various roles and responsibilities? And I just wrote, with a calendar. Because I'll tell you, ever since the children were young, you need to keep a calendar. And so you know where they have to go. And young people now with young children, there's so many opportunities for the young today, and you want your children all to take advantage of that. The other thing is, if somebody needs your help, you have your priorities, and that's the hardest thing. If you look on that calendar and say, oh gosh, no, I have to take my mother to the doctor today, or I have to do something else, that you have to weigh out all of your responsibilities, and somehow it works out. It works out. Whatever your decision is, you can't feel guilty about it. Just go on to the next thing that makes you feel good. So.
Thank you.
I know I just said something, but you made me think of something, Rose. When you think about time, right? So I used to say, and I still say, you're busy and I don't have any time for that. And someone kind of bit back at me and said, you have time for whatever you choose to make time for. And I was like, no, I don't, right? In my head, I'm thinking but it was a really good reminder when you're feeling overwhelmed that I am making a choice, right? And it is about the calendar. You can choose what comes off and what goes on your calendar. And so I think that just empowerment and also responsibility, because I think for me, not feeling helpless does make me feel better. So the idea that even though I don't like this situation, it's really I'm doing it to me. So get over yourself and move on. That's helpful self-talk for me, not negative. So I appreciate the calendar comment.
I know that I had listened to speakers that typically when they talk about work-life balance, that there is no such thing. And I liked hearing from someone that called it work-life integration. So it's in the spirit of the seasons, meaning that, I've always felt that working full-time at a certain point, 5:30, whatever, it's like I have to literally throw everything up in the air, just put that on pause, do the kids, do the dinner, do the extracurriculars, and then after everybody goes down to bed, 9:30, 10 o'clock, I crank the computer back up and I'm back on. So that's when I changed my lifestyle of used to be an early morning person where I would run and all that good stuff. Then I became a night owl to be able to integrate all the things that were important to me. So yeah, you can't be everything at all times. So I really love that comment. But that's where I've always there is no such thing as balance. You do. I like the way that you talk about that, but that's how I was integration. So it's all good, and you can do all. You can do it all.
You can't do it all well.
Yeah, that's right.
You can't do it all well all at the same time, right? Okay. So another great question. So Shannon, I'm going to ask you: have you ever had to make sacrifices in one area of your life to prioritize fulfillment in another? And if so, how did you navigate that decision?
So I sacrificed my professional career and all the growth I was making there. I was leading a department. I had a team underneath me, and I stepped back to prioritize staying at home to raise my kids, knowing that, if I didn't jump back to it right away, it was going to get hard to kind of go back to the level I was at, the pay I was at, to be able to just kind of continue growing from that point. And it was like a conscious decision, but I put it in quotes because I never saw it as a sacrifice. It was more like a change in direction, a change in my priorities at the time, which we've all been talking about, different stages of life. And, my kids are only young ones. We all hear it. We all, know it. And it was a conscious decision that I made, with the support of my husband, to say, okay, I could always go back and work. I can always figure something else out. But for now, I'm gonna, stay home. I'm gonna take the opportunity to raise my kids and, be with them while they're young, while they're not in full-time school. And, being able to be home with them full-time is not something I take for granted. And, the second part of the question, navigating that decision, obviously, it was not something I made overnight. It was, a decision that me and my husband talked about for a long time. But I knew, again, I wasn't going to regret staying home. And I knew, if I decided to stay home and I wasn't finding that fulfillment or satisfaction, or I missed work, I knew I could go back. It wasn't like this permanent decision. I knew I could go back, but I knew that I couldn't get the time back with them. And so for me, it was kind of, the decision kind of was like, okay, this is my kids. They're young ones. I'm going to be with them. And, work can always, come at any point. I could always decide to go back part-time. I can go back full-time. I can go in and out. It just was my kids won't be 2 again. They won't be, this little again.
Shilpa, would you like to add anything?
Let's see. For me, and I guess we're sort of, saying the same thing in different formats about the different stages. And I'll remember, back when I finished my residency, I really was gonna go out and start my own practice back then. So we're talking about 23 years ago. So I really didn't start my own practice till 12 years ago. I had gotten a couple of part-time positions, and I was pregnant with my first child at the end of my residency. And I didn't want to do it then. Once I was pregnant and I gave birth, I said, you know what? Having my own practice will require me to be on top of my patients 24/7, 7 days a week, getting coverage. So I chose to hold off. I think I remember my father being disappointed and my husband being disappointed at the time, but I always wanted to be a mother and have children, so I took that time frame and said, listen, this is for me right now. And I still led very fulfilled. My first position that I had, I was a part-time position in a practice. I worked for a hospital, and I was very fulfilled that way. And then once my husband finished his fellowship, he did go out on his own, and I strongly encouraged that, do it. You know what? I'm not doing it right now, but one of my part-time positions I had gave us our health benefits and everything else. I said, you go do it, and we'll have our children, and I'll take the part-time role, which I did for many years. When I had my third child, the hospitalist position fell on my lap, and the hours were perfect. I was in that position for 5 years, but I will say truly, I was not fulfilled at the job. And our nanny at the time would even say, when I finally decided after 5 years I was going to go out on my own, she said, Doc, she said, I'm really happy you're going to, because I could tell you weren't happy. But I did it because I was happy with my children at the time, because I felt that I had the time to give them and for my husband to start a very successful practice. So every other piece in my life that was important to me was falling into place. And my parents moved down. We were able to help them get settled into this area, so the rest of my family all fell into place at the time. But from a job standpoint, for several years at that time, I was not fulfilled. But that was okay. You know what? I kept up my skill sets. I did what I needed to do. And then when my youngest was entering kindergarten, my husband looked at me and said, enough. He said, we have an office. I don't care if you only see 10 patients a week and it's not super busy, but just start up slowly. And then you'll grow it to the time when you see it being right. And now I look back, and every step of everything we did was perfect. Because as the kids got older, I increased my hours by another hour or two, another hour or two, another hour or two. Now I need to figure out how to cut back again. But, you know, it's all good. And it just somehow, you just gotta let life take yourself, you know, for what the moment, not for the day, but for that stage, right?
Great, thank you. Let's talk about navigating transitions. We've all gone through them. Jane, I'm going to ask you, how have major life transitions, like career changes, relationships, parenthood, influenced your journey towards fulfillment?
When I left the pharmaceutical company and started to teach chemistry in the Redmond Valley Community College, it's a very different role. In the big company corporate world, you are doing one part of your role or your job. But in the teaching position, I usually have a class about 40 students, and I am the one who really managing these 40 students. I actually, even though Redmond Valley Community College is a smaller organization compared with corporate world, but I feel like I'm more critical to the life of these 40 students. I may, if I teach well, make them interested, they might pursue further the chemistry or science in the future, will really make a huge contribution to the society. If I don't teach well, I may make them hate the chemistry, never want the science again, lose the opportunity for themselves and for the society.
No pressure.
So I feel like I am more important and more critical to impact, more impactful to the students. So it's a big, and also the way you talk to your students very different from the way you talk to your peer, your colleague in the corporate world. It's quite a different conversation in a way, make a big change. So it's a big change, but I really enjoy the teaching role that I had at the Redmond Community College.
Thank you. Emily, can you share any insights or lessons learned from the moments of transition or change in your life?
Yeah, so I mentioned that I moved from the city fairly recently. And even though I spent my entire childhood in the area, I was unexpectedly struggling a little bit with the transition, I think, as anyone does after a big move. And I think that was primarily because I was coming back in a very different stage of life than when I had grown up here. So, you know, admittedly, I had to give myself that space and time for adjustment. But I started to think about, you know, what's missing here, what has given me fulfillment in other spheres of my life, no matter where I was. And for me, that was running. Recognizing that that may not be the case for others in this room, and that's fine. But for me, I knew that was what it was. So then I started to think, okay, so how can I bring that to my experience here? And fortuitously, another woman on social media put herself out there and reached out and said, hey, is anyone interested in starting a running group? I jumped on it immediately and I said, absolutely. She said, I thought it'd be a good way to just get to know people in the area. I'm new to the area too. And it made me realize that there's, you know, don't be afraid to go outside of your comfort zone and put yourself out there, no matter what it may be, a running group or another hobby or interest you may have, because chances are there are other people out there that are feeling exactly the same way, and they're just waiting for someone else to take that initial step. So I'm so glad she did, because we've kept the group running ever since. We've made lasting friendships from it. We've gotten fulfillment in so many ways from it, so I'm so glad that she put herself out there on behalf of all of us.
Great. So we're going to transition to self-care and well-being. So Dolores, how do you prioritize self-care and well-being in your daily life, and how does it contribute to your overall sense of fulfillment?
I prioritize it by scheduling it just like I schedule everything else. I'm a planner, and I'm also a creature of habit. I'm just wired that way. So I run, but on a treadmill, and I have to do it at my own pace. I probably couldn't keep up with anyone else. And I was never a runner. So I'm actually very proud of that. Because I think I was one of those weird runners, like I probably didn't know what to do with my hands or something like that. But I'm a very good walker, and that's just like the best feeling. It's just mentally what it does for me. I have to give myself that time, first thing in the morning, and if it doesn't happen first thing in the morning, that's okay too. I get down there and, when I say down there, I mean, it's in the basement level. I walk, and then I run, and then I run out of breath, and then I walk again. And some days are better than others, but I want to emphasize scheduling. You just have to prioritize your health and well-being, just like you prioritize everything else. So.
Well said.
It's the
Thank you.
calendar. You need that calendar.
Everything goes back to the calendar.
It's a consistent thing for me anyway.
And wasn't it a big change, right, when COVID hit? Many of us had tremendous calendars, and then all of a sudden, nothing.
Right.
Yeah. Emily, what advice would you give to other women who may struggle to prioritize their own well-being amidst their other various responsibilities?
Yeah, so naturally I was drawn to this question, given what I do for work as well. But back to your scheduling comment, I think that's what has helped our run group stay running for as long as it has, literally. We have scheduled a consistent day and time every week that we can meet, 8 a.m. on a Sunday, not appealing to everyone, but it appeals to a lot of us moms. And I think it has allowed us to schedule it in, like you said, and those in our worlds and our households have come to schedule around it. It's just become an expectation, it's on the calendar, it's scheduled along with any other kid activity or anything else. So I think, number one, super important, schedule your well-being time just like you would anything else in your life. I think another important part is, we women tend to put self-care on the bottom of the priority list. I think it's important to reframe it. Prioritizing your well-being is not a selfish thing or something you should feel guilty about. In fact, it helps you to thrive in all the other areas of your life. And I have emphasized this with my kids. Mommy running is good for you, and here's why. And it has also set an example for them that prioritizing your health and well-being is something they should be doing. So I think it's important to reframe it in your head. This is not something selfish that I'm doing for myself. It in fact helps me to thrive in all areas of my life and helps others in my life be better too. And then I think to your point too, starting small and setting realistic goals. Having been a marathon runner in a former life, I didn't start out running all of those miles. You can start out running or walking one and go up from there. Or if you have a busy work schedule, it's scheduling 5-10 minutes on your calendar to take a meditation break or a walk or anything like that. So setting realistic goals for yourself would be another one I'd take away. And I think just, also just recognizing the holistic value, in our case, it's exercise. And I do want to emphasize it's all ability levels. You don't have to be a runner. You can be a walker. Or if you like coffee, we get coffee too. You could just do that part. But I think it's also recognizing it's not just about the physical, it's about the mental and social impact that it gives us. Another member of our group referenced it as therapy on the pavement, and it truly is. And then we have made these, lasting friendships while doing something that we love. So just leave you with that.
I think to a few points that we've hit recently about, self-care, prioritizing ourselves. We all, we're all moms. We all know that when the kids are young, it's very hard to prioritize ourselves. And, you hear that term mom guilt. That is constant. I remember probably after the first year or two of having our first, I asked my husband, do you feel guilty, all the time? And he's like, no. I'm like, never? He's like, maybe once. I've gone to bed I feel a little bit guilty about not spending as much time or doing, and I'm like, I feel guilty every day. Every time I go to bed, I'm like, oh, I didn't spend enough time with them playing, or, I had to do housework, so I felt guilty that I couldn't, do this activity with them, or we couldn't get to all the extracurriculars this week, or, I'm constantly feeling guilty, but it is trying to reframe my mind. And, now that, as my kids get a little bit older, I've really been working to, carve out that time for myself. And like we said in the beginning, what fills my cup, what, re-energizes me so that I can be a better mom, that I can be a better friend and wife and daughter. And, for me, it's networking, socializing, the moms group that I'm part of. It's for the kids. That's was the basis of it. But we have grown so much to do things outside of just kid activities. We've been doing a lot of things with local businesses. We'll do Mom's Night Out. We'll do wine tastings or beer tastings. We'll do exercise classes, book club. Like, there's just so many things that we're putting out there so that moms know it's, you know, it's okay to, you know, get out and do something for yourself. We've even been putting together like dad's nights, and, you know, it's okay for the dads too to go out and do something for them. And I just think it's definitely important, and it's definitely a reframe of mind, for sure, the balance of it all.
One of the things I was going to add, which, you know, as you transition from having younger children to older children, and you recognize at some point where you need that time for yourself, or for you and your husband, or the husband, you know, needing their alone time. But all of what, with our children, when we were giving so much and so much, is when we structure it like a calendar, but structuring this in the same way, is, you know what? Like, even now when my kids may call and I'm in the middle of office hours, I'll be like, honey, I really want to have this conversation, but I'm busy right now. I'm in the middle of something, just the way if you're in a class, I can't call you. I'm in the middle of office hours, but what about 8 o'clock tonight? Are you home? I'd really love to have that, you know, just one-on-one. And giving the kids, and one of the things I was taught by someone, which I thought was fabulous, even when the kids are younger, even if, you know, you're a stay-at-home mom or whatever, you could be cooking. You could be doing something else, or taking care of a parent, or whatever other task that is on your lap. The child is always pulling you, because they always have to be first. You just say, you know what, honey, I absolutely want to do whatever. Give them a time, and then follow through with that time. And what I found is, once I started doing that with my children, you took that set time and gave it to them. They were satisfied, and I left without feeling guilty that I gave them that alone time for that amount of time without any other interruptions. And I think that slowly decreased the guilt when I wasn't giving it to them. And as that guilt decreased, I think everybody in the house started feeling that they had their space.
Health and well-being is an important topic, and I have a complete bias. As a pharmacist, that's just, I have that bias towards. But if any of us have ever been hit with an illness, you quickly get your priorities in order, right? So especially when it hits you, nothing else really matters. You have to take care of yourself so you can get out of bed to do literally anything, let alone, you know, so you really, unfortunately, an illness can knock your priorities right back to where they need to be. So my own personal experience, I'm not great at it, but nonetheless, we continue to try and be a student and try to improve. Let's switch the topic to community and support. So Christina, how important is having a supportive community or network of women in your journey towards fulfillment?
Absolutely critical. So obviously, just to function, right, in a community, there, teachers, librarians, police, I mean, you can name all the people that serve us. So I think, but it's really about belonging, right? So you want to be part of something and feel like you're part of something, and I think it's, so if you can slow down long enough to appreciate all the small things other people are doing for you, that makes you feel good. And if you can find ways to give back yourself, that helps, that feels good too. And I think sometimes when life is very full, it can feel hard to find a way to be the contributor, right? So, you know, oftentimes I'll look at my stay-at-home mom friends and I'm like, oh, I wish I could share the carpool, and wish I could do it. Like, I see the things that other people do, and I wish that I could do all of those things, and I don't necessarily always make the time to be able to do them. But I think it's not always the big things, right? So there are ways for you to figure out how to do very, very small things, and that might just be saying to someone like, I got you, like, or I'll cook this meal for you, or I'll host the impromptu thing at my house, even though it's not clean, because it's going to be fun if we do it. Or I'll, you know, whatever. All those little things where, you know, you just give people a little bit of grace, and how great that feels. Because then when you can do that, that fills your cup, and when then people do it back for you, then you know you're not just running on this track like by yourself, right? That you're really part of a community. And so, you know, I always think when people say, well, I can't ask for help, I want you to reframe that. Why don't you give someone else the opportunity to serve you? We all want those opportunities. So instead of thinking about you being selfish, asking for help, think about how wonderful it is for you to give the opportunity for someone else to serve you, because that feels really good. So I think there's something to that. That is the definition of community for me.
Thank you. Rose, would you like to add?
I think community support is extremely important. I know many a times, like throughout the years, when our children were in grammar school and high school, there were several tragedies in the town. And people came together, whether it was at church, prayers, things like that, together to help the families. Illnesses, people in the community would make meals for the families that were sick or needed extra help and things like that. So knowing your neighbors and what they need is an important part of being in the community. And I think Basking Ridge has really done a good job on that.
Thank you. If I can piggyback on, Rose, if I ask you again, sharing an example of time when the support of other women played a significant role in your personal, your professional development.
Okay, I thought of that. Remember when I told you I went and took the course and I got a job in nursing after being out of nursing for all those years. And my preceptor at Morristown, the hospital I had to go to, was a woman named Adele. And it turned out that she graduated from the same nursing school that I did. And she was so welcoming because, of course, you're very nervous about everything you do. And she was a woman that just took over and made me feel welcomed, didn't make me feel stupid. And so she sticks out in my mind, you know, and I'm sure we've all come across people in our lives that need that same kind of kindness and helping and whatnot, so we have to be aware that everybody is different and needs certain help.
Thank you. So one of the final questions that we have prepared, and I don't know if we have any audience-generated questions, if we could perhaps collect those, ladies, thank you. Advice for younger women, either younger women or if you could go back in time and do it to yourself. So let's start, Dolores. What advice would you give to younger women who are just starting to explore their own paths towards fulfillment?
This is probably my favorite question in the whole group, because who in this room would not want to go back and talk to your younger self? I remember when I was working full-time, and my husband and I wanted a family more than anything, and we were so worried about going from 2 incomes into 1 income. And at that time, probably like today too, it just felt as if the rules were always changing. They were always moving the goalposts, and it was just becoming harder and harder. But if I was just consumed with worry. So if I had to go back, I would tell myself, stop worrying. Take it slow, one day at a time. I was so obsessed with getting it all right and all correct. And then I realized I'm never going to get everything right. I'm going to mess up. But I found that I remembered what I messed up more than the things that I got right. And that's exactly where the best lessons revealed themselves to me. Another thing I would tell my younger self is you're going to learn a hell of a lot more in the 3rd decade and the 4th decade of your life compared to the first 2. Every setback and every twist of fate is a setup for a comeback. Every failure is a lesson, and setbacks are not failures unless you quit, kind of like in running too. And I quit often, by the way. On the days when I felt like the world is against me, I just remembered in those moments the resilience and the strength that I didn't even know I had will come through then. And another thing I'd like to tell my younger self then too is to take notes, and I mean that literally. Keep a journal, not just for your accomplishments, but also your hardships too. Because I would have loved to have those notes now. And going back to the conversation, I was going to interject, but I didn't want to interrupt anyone. I had to remind myself continuously that, when I gave up my career, I had to continuously remind myself that my career does not by itself define my self-worth. You are replaceable at work, but you're not replaceable at home. So I had no regrets about staying home. I mentioned you a couple of times. You left the room. I'll send you the memo.
She can watch it on the rewind, right?
So yeah, I'll end it on that note. And it's funny, I was nervous about what I was gonna say, so I sent my notes to my daughter, who also works for a law firm in New York, and she was brutally honest and cut out a lot, but she circled.
A lot of red lines.
She circled, yeah, because we could have been here all night. But she absolutely loved, and she said I should emphasize about learning a hell of a lot more in the third decade and the fourth decade. So shout out to my daughter Alex for that one. And yeah.
I know there's a lot of energy on these questions, so I think a few folks are going to pipe in, so please go ahead.
While you're thinking about it, I'll just say something really quickly, which is, I think my advice to any younger, anybody really, not just younger people, is that all your growth comes when you're uncomfortable, all of it. So don't be afraid to take a risk. Like, you can probably figure out a different path if it doesn't work out the way you want it to. But be comfortable being uncomfortable. Be my advice.
Thank you.
To that point, and also to Emily's point earlier about putting yourself out there outside of your comfort zone, you're gonna get back what you put in. And I've definitely learned that a lot with the moms group and the community, that it might be intimidating going to a meeting or a dinner or something where you know nobody, but that's how I got involved more and more with the group, and I've met so many people. I mean, I can go pretty much anywhere in town and I know somebody. And my husband, my mother-in-law, a lot of people will be like, oh my God, you know so many people. It's just because through the moms group, through the work that we're doing with businesses and just getting involved in the schools, you really just have to put yourself out there and be willing to, maybe you're a little uncomfortable, but be willing to introduce yourself or to find something in common with someone, to socialize, to network, and you really find that the more you put out, the more you'll get back.
Thank you. Rose, would you like, or Shilpa?
I was just thinking, I'm probably the oldest one here, and the only one with grandchildren probably. But as I think back and everything, the one thing that I always had, I was a person of faith. And I believe that a lot of the things that I've been fulfilled in is because I practice my faith. And there's always somebody else there to help me, who's also a good neighbor. So I just wanted to throw that in there.
Thank you.
So my advice to younger women, and I'm going to speak twofold. One, from my own experience, and the second as an obstetrician, because I see a lot of changes from the way I was originally raised. Back in the day, it used to be you educated yourself, you got married, you had children. And that education, as the years have gone by, everyone's education goal has increased, at least in our areas and neighborhoods. Financial security before you get married, before you have children. We're pushing things out further and further and further. And we've also made it acceptable in society to have children later and later and later, which is it's all doable because we have the ability to have children as we get older. But there's still something to be said to have children at at a younger age, because it is a healthier way. And I think as we are pushing our career goals and financial securities, what I would advise any younger woman today is, if you found your mate, or if you have found a place to start, there's other options these days than there were 20, 30 years ago. But if you're at a point where you're ready to start having children, don't push it off for education or financial security. It will all come. We have become a society of such planners that we're pushing our own health as women by having children later and later. It's easy to go see in the park when everyone's walking their children in the stroller that, oh, I was 40 when I had my first child, and if she can do it, I can wait till 40. You're not hearing the background stuff that the obstetrician is making sure that the blood pressure and the diabetes and all the other pieces that come in that we're keeping tightly under control. And again, I'm not saying that you can't have children when you're older. Please don't anybody misinterpret that statement. What I'm trying to state is, if you're able to, if you found your mate and you're ready to have children, don't hold off having children. That child at 6 months doesn't care how that nursery's decorated. The teenager might, but the kid in the nursery in the crib, you're decorating that room for yourself. The child does not care. So don't delay it. And in today's world of computers and Zoom and whatever else, you can get your master's and whatever other degree at night, put the child to sleep, start your courses at night. There's all these other options today that weren't there 20, 30 years ago. So my advice is to continue having your family, because that's an age bracket that is still an age bracket. But everything else, you can still fulfill yourself. There's nothing stopping you at 40, 50, 60 to keep going and doing everything else. I feel that I have more energy today than I did 20, 30 years ago to keep doing more.
Great. Anyone else want to make any comments on this question?
I would just add, I think I would tell myself this today too, but don't let perfect be the enemy of good. I tend to be a perfectionist, and we were talking a lot about balancing everything and not being able to fit it all in, and sometimes good is good enough, and that's okay. So someone said that to me, and it's always stuck with me.
So I'm going to call an audible. We have a couple questions that I want, since you took the time to write them, that I want to try to make sure that I can ask the panel, and I want to give time for the panel to make closing remarks. So I'm going to switch to a couple of the questions that we received. So I will let whoever feels compelled to answer this, please feel free. So the first question is, to what extent was there a woman or a man who made a strong impact on you, i.e. a teacher, colleague, family member? What did you admire about that individual, and how have you made that trait a part of your life?
I want to get started. My parents, as mentioned earlier, I grew up in China through the Cultural Revolution, through a lot of hardship. While education, my parents always made my education and my sibling. I have a brother and sister. I'm the youngest of 3. And they did everything they could during all the hardship to make sure we received the best education available back then in the all difficult situation. So they made a huge impact. And I think they are wonderful parents. So I try to follow their footsteps to be a good parent as well.
Rose, I think you were going to make a comment.
I was going to say, interesting enough, it was my mother-in-law. When I first started dating my husband, she was just a lady and very soft-spoken. She loved her kitchen and all. Then she worked full-time, and we'd go there for weekends for dinner. And at Christmas time, she made all these cookies, working full-time, but she'd give all the cookies away to people and everything. And I always thought that was nice. She knew how to set a table, and things like that. So I think I learned a lot of my homemaker skills, not from my mother, but from my husband's mother.
If I were going to add, my mother got married at age 18, and she did not have the opportunity to go to college. She was smart enough, she just didn't have the opportunity. I honestly think she wouldn't necessarily admit it, that that's why she married my father, because she was the oldest of 4 girls, and my dad was the way out of the house. But nonetheless, growing up, Mom always said that you could be anything you want to be. And so she made sure that my brother and I had an opportunity to go to college. So I'm the first in my family to go to college, and she always told me, Jen, don't settle. Unfortunately, I lost her. I was 25 when she passed of breast cancer. But it's something that commitment to empowering women that they can be whatever they want to be is really important to me. It's in every gene of my body, because I think people need to understand that there is that opportunity. I think sometimes friends that are immigrants, they see that more as an opportunity, but I think it's really important for us to remind ourselves that, you know what, you can do whatever it is. So anyway, so thank you for that. It's a great question. Another is, what personal strength do you feel has been persistent in your life? To what extent do you see that strength in your children?
Does stubbornness count?
Stubbornness is a good one.
I mean, I don't know if it's a strength, but I think that just that willingness to take the risk, and then, you know, hating to lose, those two. I mean, I people say you like to win. I actually hate to lose more than I like to win. Like, that might not be a good quality, but it's the truth. So, is that maybe that perseverance or that comes with being stubborn is probably alive in my oldest child. So.
I would say confidence and tenacity.
Well, those are better.
I don't know about better. I think it's a confidence and the tenacity. It's not to give up. You know, one of the things I tell my children all the time is everyone crosses hurdles. And the more successful someone is, the more hurdles they've crossed. It's not because they're smarter or not because something was given to them on a golden platter or silver platter, however I want to say it. But it's the ones that have crossed more hurdles, because that builds strength and confidence. Don't ever let anybody say you can't do something or that you're not good enough. If it's what you want, then you go for it. And you keep going for it. Even if you fall on your face, you get right back up and come home. What I always tell the kids is, you come home, Mom will make you a good home-cooked meal. You can snuggle up in your bed, take the weekend off, but then you get right back up on your feet on Monday and go attack the world again.
Very nice. So we're nearing the end, so I want to be respectful of time. So let's think about closing thoughts. Panelists, as we conclude, what final thoughts or insights would you like to share with our amazing audience about the pursuit of fulfillment as a woman? Who'd like to start?
I'll start. I'll just say, find what you love, because that's good for you and others in your life. And step outside of your comfort zone, because even if it feels uncomfortable, like we were talking about, be uncomfortable, because it's going to lead to growth and fulfillment.
Be patient, because it's not a magical thing. You have to work at something a little bit in order to get fulfilled, but it comes, and it's very, very happy.
We aren't meant to do this alone, whether it's motherhood, just being a member of the community. They always say it takes a village. And I think, I don't know, I don't know if, you guys would say maybe you felt that more growing up or not. I know there's been a lot of remarks lately, and it, just with the way technology, social media, now the pandemic, that we've, kind of grown as a generation to be a little more lonely, in a sense that, like, we're behind screens, or we're really fast-paced and we're super busy and overscheduled. But it's just the reminder that we weren't meant to do all this alone. We have community for a reason. Our kids go to school for a reason. We have friends. We have family. And I've definitely learned that in motherhood. We're not meant to just raise our kids by ourselves. We're supposed to obviously have the help of our partner, but also of our friends and just people that we meet along the way, to share in the chaos and the, just someone to vent to, or to be like, yeah, like I hear you, I feel that too, or just someone to support you and listen. And like, I know it's definitely, a lot more fun when I get together with my friends and we have the kids versus, trying to do it all alone.
Happiness comes from within, and if you are unhappy with yourself, you will be unhappy in general. I believe very strongly, repeating what some has already been said, take care of yourself mentally and physically so that you could better help others as well. And I just want to end it with by saying being a part of this Basking Ridge community has benefited my family tremendously. It is a very supportive place with multiple avenues of resources, and I know a lot of us here today can relate to that, and I just want to say thank you to everyone for coming and listening.
Anyone else want to share any parting remarks?
Go ahead.
Okay. This is maybe not on point with the topics that we've had today, but I think when you talked about being online and a little bit more lonely, Shannon, it made me think about how quick it seems our country is to polarize versus pluralize, right? So like we have to be right, we have to pick a side, we have to, and it's not just politics, like anything, like it could be whether the lines are blue or green or whether the crossing guard stands on the left side of the street or the right. Like there seems to be a desire to create division, and I think that's really unhealthy for our communities and our country and our personal happiness. And so if there's a way for us to lead the charge to believe that two things can be right, that might be really important for our future. So that's my thought.
Thank you.
My closing thought, I'm going to throw a little twist on this, actually. We're talking about the fulfillment of a woman. And I think most of us that are up here, we're talking about the fulfillment with children, family, giving time, volunteer time, and trying to do it all. My best friend and I growing up, I'm of Indian immigrant. I was born and raised here, but my parents are from India. And one of my best friends growing up, also my parents' friend's daughter, back from when they all came from India and had their small community. But she and I are the same age, and our parents still talk, but she and I are best friends. And she lives in the city. She never married. It didn't work out for her. She's a beautiful, successful attorney. And when she and I get together, we talk about not just being best friends, but how the two of us are such opposites. I was always the goody-goody when I was younger. She was always the naughty one. I'm the one who got married. She's the one who didn't. I'm the one who had the children. She's the one who doesn't. I'm the doctor. She's the lawyer. So we joke, but we have such laughter when we get together for dinner. And you know what I find in her? My father used to say, well, she can't be happy. She's not married. She has to be married to be happy. And my husband and I would look at my father and say, really? You know what? She's happy. And she's very fulfilled. And
She probably thinks you're unhappy.
no, she actually looks at me and says, oh, well, you have someone that, we have this conversation, and she has 6 nieces and nephews, and, boy, those 6 nieces and nephews are well taken care of and looked after, trust me. But, fulfillment, I think it's from within. And as a woman, I think we all try to live in a defined world of what a woman should be. But I think it's from within, and that's why this just came to me as we're all communicating, that, my best friend, she doesn't have children, but she's very fulfilled, and she found a path because she did not find the love of her life. She chose to go down a different pathway. And in today's world, as an obstetrician, I'll throw out there are a lot of women of similar situations that have not found their soulmate. There's methods to still conceive and have a child, and I know many women now that are starting to go that pathway as well. And again, I think it's not a matter of right or wrong, it's a matter of what you find to fulfill yourself. And if it's in a traditional manner, wonderful, and if it's not, that's okay too.
Anyone else? Okay, so a tremendous thank you to our amazing panel. Again, you guys were fabulous. And to our very attentive audience, thank you for coming. The fact that you came shows that you are doing something to help yourself. I hope that you made time for yourself to come, and I hope that you were able to find some pearls from something that one of these amazing ladies said. I also want to acknowledge and thank the gentlemen that are in the audience, that behind many fulfilled women, we have tremendous support that enable us to be able to achieve what we wish to do. So again, it takes a village, and we love having help from all areas. And I also need to thank my fellow committee women, both Deputy Mayor Fields as well as Anna Duarte McCarthy, for your help and your attendance for tonight. Thank you. And so for anyone that missed this, we'll have a recording, and so everyone can watch it for fun. You can force your kids to watch it with popcorn, maybe some upcoming weekend evening. Everyone, thank you so much for coming. Have a great night.